Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel.
All right, so I'm in the studio. I've got my epoxy resin poured. ChatGPT and Grok said, like, it first said 80 ounces for a 1/4 of an inch pour. And I thought, well, let me half that. That seems like a lot. And then even when I mixed up, it said, 80 ounces. So let me half that. So I did 40 ounces. That still seems to look like a lot. I put a barrier, like a little dam on the edges here to keep the epoxy resin from pouring over the edge. Well, it just pushed, and ChatGPT and Grok said, yeah, painter's tape will work. Painter's tape don't work. It just pushed the painter's tape over to the edge. And I was like, what? So I've got a flood of epoxy resin coming out here. Looks like it's starting to come out here. And this is just a temporary barrier wall to keep the tape from letting the epoxy resin out. So I don't know how much epoxy resin I'm going to use or lose in all this, but man, I should have just went to the Art Resin website and did the calculations there. So 1/8 of an inch probably shouldn't have been 40. I did 48 ounces to have just a little bit more, but a little epoxy resin emergency tonight, and I want to keep it from pouring all over my garage. So I just hit it with the blowtorch, which I'll probably hit it again here in a second. And so just to kind of start helping it cure up. If it'll cure up and get hard, we'll be good. But if it doesn't, I got a mess on my hands. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Trying to get a good thick coat of epoxy resin on this so that, I'm not too close, so that I can, my goal is to have a thick layer of epoxy resin on this so that when I do my white continuous line on top of it, it casts a shadow down onto the gold. When you put this in the light, it's going to be like, whoa, that's crazy. And then we'll have, obviously the heart. But the heart, you'll be able to, it'll be kind of transparent, so you'll see the line underneath it. So yeah, whew. Epoxy resin mess. Have you ever had an epoxy resin mess? Anything like this? See, like look at this corner here. That's just all gummed up. Not what I wanted, but that's okay. I was planning on sanding the edges down anyway. Sanding those down, putting the next layer on. So what I may do, I didn't raise this canvas. So on the next layer, I'll raise the canvas and then let that layer pour over the edges a little bit. So, whew. Thanks for watching the epoxy resin mess. Let's see what happens next. Hey, it's the next day, 7:15-ish, and last night when I was working on this, it was between 10:30 and midnight. Let's look at this epoxy resin mess. I think I can salvage this, but let's look. So you can see here where the epoxy resin just poured out. I clipped all this up. We had a friend give us a shower curtain. I'm really glad I put it down because I do know that epoxy resin does love to pour out. Drip over, all that good stuff. I had to make these retaining walls on either side. My buddy Jason gave me that man card. That right there, boy, I tell you what. Look at that. That's my man card. All right. So, look at this. Look at how it just poured out. I don't know. I lost a lot of epoxy resin. This is going to be a beast. Maybe not. It might just all pop right off. We'll see. Put this 2x4 over here. Break away. Ooh, it's pretty solid. Okay, so I am going to put this on a tripod because I might have to break out the rubber mallet or the sledgehammer. We'll see. It has sealed these wood pieces on here. There we go. Okay, so the good news is this is salvageable, but the bad news is it's not going to be ready like I thought it would be. I mean, look at all the, I want you to look at the epoxy resin that was wasted. This, look how thick this piece is. Holy, that's just epoxy resin. And pour it out. I've got a pretty significant lip here, which is fine. And the epoxy resin was just like this piece. It just tore off the bottom. That could be fun. Make something out of that. So I can salvage this. Not a problem. The great news is I made two. So I'll put less epoxy resin on this and I'll build the layers up gradually. And I will not depend on ChatGPT or Grok to tell me my measurements on epoxy resin ever again. So if you are looking for measurements, there's a great art resin website. Art Resin is the name of the website. And they have a epoxy resin calculator on there. So I highly recommend using that. And actually, I probably should have done that before I shot this video. I may just take a break here and see what they say as far as how much epoxy resin should be poured out. Also, don't use painter's tape. If you're going to build a bridge or a wall around it, it's probably best to use that white board you can get at Home Depot, the Milanite. I can't think of the name. Anyway, it's just solid white, and epoxy resin will pop off of that pretty quickly. Anything that's real plasticky, epoxy resin would pop off of. But I just mixed up way too much epoxy resin. Lost about half of it, and I've got a nice top coat on this. What I'll do is I'll take this through the sander. I'll just sand all these areas down and start over on the sides, and then still build up that layer of epoxy resin as I need to. So, all right, well, that's part 2 of the Emmanuel piece that I'm trying to work on and get done. Sorry this didn't turn out like we liked it, but I've got to get busy. Probably won't film the next few steps because I got a lot of sanding to do on this. I'm actually just going to put this one aside do epoxy resin on this one, the second one over here, and then go from there. So hopefully that's what you'll see next. So anyway, thanks for watching. See ya. 20 ounces. 20 ounces is what Art Resin's website says. Check this out. Resin calculator, 24 by 24 inches. You will need 20 ounces. 10 ounces of resin, 10 ounces of hardener. But hey, guess what? I don't have time for that. Because tonight, I'm making chicken stockings.